Edison once wrote, "The idea occurred to me that it was possible to devise an instrument which should do for the eye what the phonograph does for the ear. Thus, if one wished to see or hear a concert or the opera, it would only be necessary to sit down at home, look upon a screen, and see the performance reproduced exactly, and at the same time the voices of the players and singers and the music of the orchestra." Although he never got to see it to its fruition, Thomas Edison's dream is now realized in the modern movie and film score. When silent movies began to develop, people had become used to seeing ballets, operas, and plays performed along to music. It was then natural that the film should also be accompanied by music. While part of its original purpose was to cover sounds made by the film projector, scores written for specific films were composed as early as 1892. However, the most famous early film score was Camille Saint-Saëns' score for L'Ascenseur du Duc de Guise in 1908. With the Lumière brothers commissioning a pianist to accompany their first film festival in 1895, music was firmly established in the film industry. Movie theaters hired accompanists, whether it was a single pianist, organist, or a small orchestra. The musicians would often improvise along with the film or play songs that everyone knew, but in the 1910s, a list of standard songs for the film musician called the cue sheet was developed. This cue sheet allowed the accompanist to perform songs appropriate for every type of film, creating the cliché sounds for film such as tremolo for suspense, pizzicato for sneakiness, and dissonance for villainy.
What's the matter, R.F.?
The jazz singer. That's what's the matter, the jazz singer.
Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet.
When The Jazz Singer came out in 1927, film music was forced to change. The music for films had to take on a more supporting role, allowing for dialogue and other songs that had never been heard before. In 1933, Max Steiner's score for King Kong united sound effects and music in a way that had never been done before. Max Steiner became one of the most prolific Hollywood composers, scoring over 300 films, including the 3-hour-long film score for Gone with the Wind, which was the longest film score that had ever been written at that time. Film scores also adopted a technique from opera known as the leitmotif. This technique, made most popular by Richard Wagner, is a short theme that is somehow related to some part of the drama. This theme will then be repeated, whether to highlight what is being shown, or to suggest to the listener something unseen that is being thought by one of the characters. One of the most famous film composers that used this technique was Bernard Herrmann. Bernard Herrmann, who is often considered the most important orchestral film composer, is best known for his work with Twilight Zone and Alfred Hitchcock. One of his most famous scores was written for the movie Psycho, where he employed modernist musical techniques and dissonance. In addition, the score was composed using only strings, when most audiences were used to hearing string sections reflect gentle romantic themes. His best score, which has also been considered the best film score ever written, was for the film Vertigo. His intricate polytonal themes, or leitmotifs, for love, vertigo, and obsession in this film thoroughly stunned audiences. Soon, however, electronic music began to make its appearance. One of the early electronic musical instruments, the theremin, was used to pioneer electronic music in film scores. This instrument creates sound by the player moving their hands through a magnetic field coming from a metal loop and rod, and its unearthly sound was often used in science fiction films such as Bernard Herrmann's score for the 1951 film The Day the Earth Stood Still. The first person to utilize this instrument, however, was Miklos Rozsa, when he used it to show mental illness in his score for Alfred Hitchcock's Spellbound. Miklos Rozsa also went on and composed one of the most iconic film scores of all time, the score for the 1959 Ben-Hur. The demand for electronic music continued to grow, and in 1956, Louis and Bibi Baron created the first entirely electrical film score for The Forbidden Planet. By 1981, the invention of the synthesizer made all kinds of sounds possible that had never been heard before, which Vangelis took advantage of in the score for Chariots of Fire. As music continued to change, it began to seem as if pop and rock music could take over the movie soundtrack. However, in the 1970s, a classically trained composer rose to the forefront that changed everything. John Williams' scores for Jaws and Star Wars revived audiences' appreciation for the classical film score, and the orchestra again became the backbone of the movie soundtrack. Nevertheless, electronic music was still at the forefront. This caused the film industry to search for composers who were able to combine the traditional film orchestra with electronic music. One of the best of these composers is Hans Zimmer, who is known for his scores for movies such as Crimson Tide, Gladiator, and Pirates of the Caribbean. Many people consider the film score to be only an aid to the film itself. However, without music, movies would never have gained the popularity they have today. Music connects viewers to the films in an emotional way that could not be done otherwise. When a listener hears suspenseful music, for example, they are not hearing the suspense already in the scene. They are hearing that suspense that is created by the music, or lack of it. Although film music has developed and been reshaped throughout the years, styles and techniques used from the very beginning can still be found in scores today. Audiences' taste in music will continue to change, and film music will change with it, making the movie soundtrack the next truly immortal musical art form.